Hello, hello, and welcome to the Dynasty 365 podcast, the Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast for fantasyandframes.com, part of the Fantasy and Frames podcast network family. Uh, Thank you for joining us. If you have not yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review on your podcast platform of choice. That would be extremely helpful, and I hope that we are going to put some good shows together for you that will make you actually want to do that. So I am Tyler Heil. I am the substitute lead dog for this podcast, as our fearless leader Brian Ford is feeling a bit under the weather today and could not make it. So we hope he gets better in a hurry and starts getting rid of whatever sickness he has. So substituting for him is the godfather of the fantasyandframes.com. I don't know what word you want to use, but it is
Jorge. Creator. We could go with creator. That works.
Okay.
Or just Jorge, however you want to go about it. But
gotcha.
No, I'm yeah, exactly. The maker. Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, man. Brian, we wish you a speedy recovery. Hope you're feeling better soon. And I'm excited, man. Trade targets. I mean, this is the type of year where people are just making trades left and right. I guess everyone's making trades left and right year round. But, with the doldrums of the summer coming, it's kind of makes sense that this is the time of year to really get that information out there.
Yeah, and you know what? Sleeper is usually good at taking suggestions from people. And this just came to mind. So I would love to see a kind of like an activity heat map for trading. Like, is it the hottest in the off season? Is it hottest leading up to the playoffs? I don't know. I feel like it would vary league by league.
That is actually a very, very good point.
So, as Jorge mentioned, we are doing a trade show. I think a lot of people are trying to position themselves right now for going into their season, whether they are positioning themselves for a good draft pick in 2023, where there's some very highly touted players, or if they're trying to position themselves to make a run at the championship this year and trade some of those draft picks away and get some high value wide receivers, some high value quarterbacks, running backs, all that good stuff. So what we did is Brian and I went through and put some of our more recent trades on there. So you can kind of get a peek into our thinking and how we are trying to manage our teams, as well as so Jorge can roast us and I can roast Brian, and I'm sure Brian will take the opportunity to roast me next week. And we also have some listener trades that we got that we absolutely want to cover. Those are pretty fun. They're all really fun, really. So what do you say, Jorge? Do you want to jump into some of these?
Let's do it, man. And, we talk about roasting. Now I know why Brian's not here today. I know he's sick, right? Because he didn't want to face the firing squad here. But yeah, let's do this, man. Let's get into this.
All right. So I'm going to do my best to frame each one of these so we know what we're talking about.
I see what you did there, Fantasy and Frames, framing this. I got you.
And that was totally on accident. I'm just getting that good.
Nice.
So the first trade is one of Brian's. So this is a 12-team PPR Superflex tight end premium, 1.5 point per reception for the tight end position. He is in some version of a retool or a rebuild. So what he did was he sent away J.K. Dobbins and Hayden Hurst, and he received Brian Robinson, Brevin Jordan, a 2023 second, a 2023 third, and a 2024 second. I certainly have my opinions about this, but what do you think, Jorge?
So, let's get the obvious out of the way here. When it comes to trading in Dynasty, everything is team dependent, league dependent, scoring dependent. There's so many different variations out there. So what I may say, or what Tyler might say, or what anyone might say in terms of how they assess the value of the players that you're sending into or receiving is really dependent on you and the fantasy manager you're dealing with. Maybe they value a player more so than you and vice versa. that being said, so as we're going to give our takes as far as like what we think as far as a trade goes, we're going to use DLF's tool over here, looking at their trade analyzer and seeing whether or not we agree with the values that they're given. I can tell you right off the top right now, sending J.K. Dobbins away, you have to get something like a haul back. And I don't know whether or not this haul with Brian Robinson, who I'm very high on, being a Commanders fan, go Brian Robinson. Brevin Jordan, I'm looking at this now that I'm looking at this list here. Brian, did you make this trade? Is this what you're trying to get? Are you the one who has J.K. Dobbins and Hayden Hurst? You're trying to acquire Brian Robinson and Brevin Jordan because
100%. Brian absolutely made this trade. This is a Brian Ford special right here with Brian Robinson and Brevin Jordan in there.
Yeah, exactly. Even then, I don't think that's enough. I don't think there's enough. DLF agrees by quite a wide margin. Yes, I understand their concerns with J.K. Dobbins coming back from the ACL. And yes, this is just, OTA talk right here, no pads on or whatever. But report came out today that Ryan Tannehill and Hayden Hurst are finding their is it Hayden Hurst is on the Titans,
no.
right? No, it's Hooper.
Okay. Austin Hooper. Hayden Hurst he actually isn't a pretty good productivity position. He is the one and only tight end on the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a pretty good spot to be in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know whether or not. He said he's in there for a rebuild. I think maybe the sender who's sending J.K. Dobbins, they could ask for a little bit more. Everyone, I guess maybe not everyone realizes that the 2023 draft class is going to be pretty stocked full of talent, and therefore in dynasty circles, those are given more weight in terms of value. But man, you got, an unknown and Brian Robinson, you still have Antonio Gibson there, split backfield, Gibson, I don't know how many years he has left on his rookie deal, but I don't see him going away anytime soon. And so Robinson being like more of a red zone threat, at least for the immediate future. Brevin Jordan, look, if you listened to the podcast last week with Jeff Bell, who was here talking about Devi with Brian, their Brevin Jordan love was quite apparent. And so I get Brevin Jordan. I get the love there. I get what's going on in Houston. That's still not enough. What are your thoughts?
I am right in line with you where it's not enough. Like you said, I get the Brevin Jordan love, uber athlete. He's going to have all the opportunity in the world with only Brandon Cooks. Sure, Nico Collins, whatever. Brian Robinson, I like him. But as you said, Antonio Gibson is still around. He's certainly not going to be very productive this year as long as Antonio Gibson actually stays on the field, which is a question mark. I cannot picture myself letting go J.K. Dobbins, who in my opinion is a top 10, top 12 dynasty running back. Right. He's a 23-year-old lead back on what is, I would say, the odds-on favorite to be the top rushing team in the NFL this year.
Mm-hmm.
I just have trouble not at least getting a 23 first back, but you know what? And we talked about this being team dependent. I have some leagues where one person has all the 23 firsts, and they're not going to use any of those to acquire a running back. And sometimes you just got to take what you can get if you think that J.K. Dobbins might be reaching the point of diminishing returns very soon, which maybe he will. He's got 2 years left on his rookie contract, but I think he'll be a productive player for several years.
Clearly this person who's sending this trade for sending J.K. Dobbins away for Brian Robinson and Brevin Jordan, clearly they didn't do their research by going to fantasyandframes.com and reading our 2022 Dynasty Target article on J.K. Dobbins, or else they would have realized they should ask for more.
Yes.
And I believe you're the one who wrote that, right? Right,
yeah, that was me.
We'll pound it back.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, man, I didn't even realize before digging into that article how good J.K. Dobbins was in the red zone, the 10 zone, the 5 zone.
Yeah.
He was converting at like a 70% rate just from inside the 10. And
Yeah, you all got to go at fantasyandframes.com and check out his Dynasty Target article on J.K. Dobbins. That maybe will help you reassess where you're thinking of, trade value there.
All right, so I think we have sufficiently angered Brian. So that's let's jump down to one of mine and see if we can find something wrong with this. I think I'm a little higher on this guy than everyone else.
Okay.
So we're going to take one of mine. It's a 12-team, half PPR, super flex, tight end premium, half point tight end premium. I traded away the 2022 207, and I received in return David Njoku. So not quite the blockbuster that we were discussing with J.K. Dobbins, but more of a straightforward.
I mean, with the Browns brought him back, obviously, and I think they tagged him and signed him to a new contract, if I'm researching correctly.
Yeah.
And man, that's a great question. Tight end premium is what, 1.5 or half a point?
It's half a point. So it's half PPR and then another half for tight ends.
Gotcha. You said the 207 this year?
Yes. That is correct. I'm actually I'm trying to feverishly look at the draft results so I can attach a name to who it was.
Either put them on blast or give them like a pat on the back, basically.
Yeah. Oh, it was another tight end. It was Trey McBride.
Yeah,
so would you rather have Trey McBride or David Njoku?
I'd rather have David Njoku, regardless of who's going to be at quarterback, whether it's Deshaun Watson or Baker Mayfield. Although I think we can all say with pretty good confidence that that's not going to be the case.
Yeah.
So what I really meant to say is, if Jacoby Brissett, he likes his tight ends. He liked his Jack Doyle's back when he was quarterbacking the Colts. So I don't see why that would change when he's in Cleveland. And clearly they want to feature Njoku in this offense, or else they wouldn't have brought him back and signed him to the contract that they did.
Yes, and he was a productive guy in Cleveland, even with Austin Hooper. So, Njoku is going to be the clear tight end one. I don't see why. And with Amari Cooper on the outside and then question marks and David Bell and Donovan Peoples-Jones and Anthony Schwartz, I don't see why he can't sniff 100 targets this year.
Speaking of Amari Cooper, have you seen like the pictures of his promotional photos like they put on Twitter? Like, this is Amari posing behind the in front of the green screen, taking his he looks so miserable.
I have not. He always looks miserable though. I don't know if he's been happy anywhere. He just like when they were on Hard Knocks, he just looked like he was beat up, even though he had just gotten like $100 million contract.
Right. Yeah. No, you're not wrong.
All right.
So yeah, I think that's a reasonable trade.
All right, so we're gonna jump back up to one of Brian's. We're gonna say little rookie fever here on this one. See, test the temperature on someone.
Right.
So you send away George Pickens and the 2023 first, a 2023 first. We're gonna go ahead and assume it's a mid 2023 first.
All right.
And you receive Deshaun Watson. And keep in mind, you're in some form of a retool or a rebuild with this. So where are you at with that, Jorge?
So I believe it's the settings here: 12-team, full PPR, Superflex, tight end premium.
Yes, thank you.
Man, I mean, taking all the off the field stuff out of the equation, and you're just looking at the player and what he could potentially be for your fantasy football team. I mean, giving away a wide receiver who has had some questions about him leading into the draft process, and most importantly, like attitude problems, compared, and you look at the depth at the wide receiver position that they have in Pittsburgh, he could be just another guy on that offense, or you could have Deshaun Watson and a 2023 first round pick. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of leaning the Watson side, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I really like the 23 draft class, just like everyone else does. George Pickens, he's really a dart throw, and I don't know if he has a middle ground. I feel like this guy is either going to be a top 10 wide receiver, or he is just going to be washed out of the league in a few years. I don't know if there's in between.
Yeah, because let's think about this. You got Deontay Johnson, who I think people in Dynasty and redraft circles are forgetting just how good he is.
Yes.
Everyone is on the Chase Claypool bandwagon this offseason. And another wide receiver that they were drafted by the Steelers this year, Calvin Austin. I'm actually pretty high on Calvin Austin. Keith Fleming from the Daily Fix podcast here on the Fantasy and Frames podcast network, he wrote an article on Calvin Austin. I mean, this guy's a burner. This guy's a deep threat. I mean, so where does Pickens fall in line versus a quote unquote sure thing, assuming he plays, which is, ironic there. And a 2023 first round pick, meaning he is in Deshaun Watson and the 2023 first round pick. Kind of hard to go against that, especially in a super flex league.
Yeah. And, we discussed this shortly before we hopped on, but I think this trade is a sneaky tank move. As long as that 23 first that you gave away to get Deshaun Watson isn't your own 23 first, if it was a second one that you had, and you're getting Deshaun Watson and it's looking like he's not going to play at all this year, deservedly so. You're going to have a guy sitting on your bench that is just not playing. And then all of a sudden 2023 rolls around and you're just going to have a top 5 quarterback coming out the gate. No rookie quarterback is going to do that for you.
This is true. This is true, Tyler. This is true. Yeah. And I believe this is a Prestige Worldwide. I think this is the Twitter handle. I could be wrong, but
we'll have to ask Brian. I don't know if that's the name of the league or if it's his trade partner.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do another one. These are fun. Love this.
Cool. So let's stick with a Pittsburgh wide receiver. So this is one of mine, and I've had a little bit of buyer's remorse on this trade. I'm not gonna lie, but I still feel pretty good about it. It's a 12-team PPR Superflex, half-point tight end premium. So I traded away Will Fuller, whoop-de-doo, a 2022 108, a 2023 first, and both would be late to mid, and a 2023 second. And in return, I received Deontay Johnson and Tua Tagovailoa.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
So basically, you gave up. Wow, you gave absolutely nothing up but seriously, Will Fuller, he's not in the league. He's not signed by a team.
Yeah.
You gave up a bunch of unknowns and draft picks, and you got probably one of the best wide receivers in fantasy football, especially in PPR and half PPR leagues, in Deontay Johnson, and a quarterback, assuming this is Superflex, that has an upgrade across the board in weaponry. This is your trade? You said one of your trades?
Yes, this is my trade.
Was the person who you're trading with, did they have no experience in Dynasty or fantasy football? Was this their first year? Did you take advantage of somebody in their first year, Tyler?
I hope he's listening, because he was just on our podcast like a month ago.
That is hilarious.
Oh man. Hilarious. No, it's my buddy Fantasy Dukes, and he felt pretty good about it. And you know what? Hey, Tua could crash and burn after this year. And I could have given up all of that for 1 year of Tua and Deontay Johnson. So that's the only reason where I've had some slight buyer's remorse on it, but I still feel really good about getting Deontay Johnson.
No, I was going to say, don't you think, even if Tua does kind of fizzle out, Deontay kind of compensates for that. Like, just because, and I think this goes back to something when it comes to strategy and dynasty and super flex leagues. And Michael Bauer of the Dynasty Rewind does a really good job of emphasizing this during his shows. So shout out to him. Just because it says superflex does not mean it has to be 2 quarterbacks. 2 quarterbacks means it has to be 2 quarterbacks. So if you have like all these offensive weaponry skill players on your roster, and your superflex spot has Deontay Johnson, if that's like the lesser of all the wide receivers that you have or running backs that you have at your flex position, you're doing all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and heck, and to back that up, where superflex does not have to be a quarterback. I lost a championship this year in a league where my team is absolutely stacked. I mean, Derek Carr is my QB3, Amari Cooper is my flex, and I lost in a championship to someone who was starting like a wide receiver 3 in their super flex spot. So
I'm just saying, like, everyone loves to jump the 2 quarterbacks with super flexes, and I'm like, you don't need to if you wait on the other second quarterback and you load up on all these. Like I saw in a league in a super flex, somebody had Zeke in his super flex spot. I'm just like, okay, boo-hoo-hoo. Like, poor you that you have Ezekiel Elliott in your super flex spot. Like, yeah. So don't fall for the you have to have 2 quarterbacks always in super flex.
Yeah, doing okay there, and that's another feather in the cap of the argument for dynasty best ball lineups, where you still manage your team normally, but you do not have to set your lineup. Our buddy Heath Cummings is a big proponent of that. And every time he comes on, he mentions, he loves his dynasty leagues as best ball, where he doesn't have to go through and look at 20, 25 dynasty lineups every single Thursday and then again on Sunday and set those lineups. So they just take the best points.
I gotta be honest with you. I was in my basement when you guys had Keith on a few weeks ago. Awesome show. And I'm not just saying that as the creator of fantasyandframes.com, trying to get you all listening and watching out there to go download this episode, rate, review, and subscribe. Wink. But it was actually really, really good. And the banter you guys had going back and forth was amazing. You know what's the best part about that? Brian has like a very dry sense of humor, but so does Heath. Excuse me. So seeing them go back and forth, and then it was great. If you haven't listened to it, folks, go back wherever you listen to podcasts, Dynasty 365 podcast. Download that latest episode with Heath Cummings from CBS Fantasy.
Absolutely. All right, let's jump into one more of Brian's.
Well, actually, before we jump into one more of Brian's, you mentioned Dynasty Best Ball. Yeah. Don't we have a little Best Ball thing to talk about when it comes to Underdog Best Ball? Because Underdog Fantasy, because I love me some Underdog Fantasy.
Absolutely. We have been partnering with Underdog Fantasy. If you have not downloaded, if you have not signed up for it, we have a promotional code. It is promo code FRAMES, FRAMES. You can download that app. You can sign up. You can log in. Underdog will match your first deposit up to $100 with that promo code FRAMES. We are 2 companies that believe in one thing more than anything, and it's having fun with fantasy. So go over, jump on Underdog. You can jump into best ball drafts for NFL, and it's not just NFL. It's any major sport league. I just jumped in on a U.S. Open golf best ball draft. I didn't win anything because I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm going to have to talk to Keith Fleming about it since he knows what's going on with that. But yeah, any major sport league, you can do a draft. I have 2 slow drafts going right now. You can jump into the Best Ball Mania tournament where they give the winner $1 million. It's a lot of fun. So I highly recommend downloading Underdog Fantasy, using the promo code FRAMES, FRAMES, getting your first deposit matched up to $100 and having a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, no. I don't know if you remember back in 2017 or maybe 2018, the company Draft they were kind of one of the first apps out there that you can do all these best ball leagues in.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a revolutionary platform. It was fantastic. It was fun. I remember I was signing up for leagues left and right. And then FanDuel bought them out, and they kind of just sat on the whole best ball thing, which is stupid because it was such a successful thing. Although, FanDuel, they're not exactly hurting for money, if you know what I mean. But the makers of Draft are the ones behind are the makers of Underdog. So they took this awesome product they had before they sold it to FanDuel, and they basically just reinvented it and made it so much better. And it's truly one of the best ball apps out there.
Yes, it is. Speaking of which, do you want to help me make a pick here, Jorge? I'm actually on the
Yeah,
clock on one of these slow drafts. That might be a little fun.
let's do that. Come on.
All right, so
Impromptu action here.
let me give you a little background here. We are in round 10.
All right.
The best ball setup on Underdog is quarterback, 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a tight end, and a flex, and it is half PPR. So I think the 3 wide receiver part is what sticks out to me. So this is how I started my draft. I went Jamar Chase at the 106.
Okay.
Then I went Aaron Jones at 207, Michael Pittman, Ezekiel Elliott, Rashad Bateman, Elijah Mitchell, Russell Wilson, Kareem Hunt, Alan Lazard at the 906. So that being said, my team, I have a quarterback, Russell Wilson. Running back, I have 4 of them: Aaron Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, Elijah Mitchell, Kareem Hunt. Wide receiver, I have 4 of them: Jamar Chase, Michael Pittman, Rashad Bateman, Alan Lazard, and I have 0 tight ends.
All right.
So people who are on the board, tight end wise, the top guys are Dawson Knox, Zach Ertz, and then retired Rob Gronkowski. Next up on the wide receiver board, Garrett Wilson, Robert Woods, Tyler Boyd, Christian Watson, Michael Gallup, Tim Patrick, Jamison Williams, people like that. Running back, there is nothing exciting at running back. I won't be touching that. And I already have 1 quarterback, so I don't really want to spend another pick on him. So what are you thinking there, Jorge? You think wide receiver, tight end, is that the best course of action?
So I don't want to go into too much detail about this player because I'll be writing a redraft target article about him early next month. But Zach Ertz, I think, is the guy. If you want to pick a tight end, that's the one to go with. No D-Hop to start the season. Familiarity with Kyler Murray down the stretch last year. He was pretty productive from tight end standpoint. And just given the wasteland that the tight end position is, I mean, you can get really good value for really good output, I should say, fantasy output from a player like Zach Ertz. So I would go tight end and get Zach Ertz. You can always get upside wide receivers later. Yeah, that would be my suggestion.
You know what? You talked me into it. I like it. I like Zach Ertz going down the stretch last year, so I'm gonna throw him on my team. See if it can help me win a little bit of money.
Nice. And speaking of best ball, like I mentioned earlier, Keith Fleming, Joe Matz from the Daily Fix podcast, they're coming back starting tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be talking over the next few weeks about best ball strategies per position. So I believe tomorrow night's going to be quarterbacks. But Keith put out a great article delineating what exactly best ball is for those who are kind of like on the fence of like, what is this? I hear it's good stuff, but what am I getting into by signing up? And he goes through these different strategies per position. So head over to fantasyandframes.com Wednesday morning to check out that article. But so looking forward to it tomorrow night with the Daily Fix.
Absolutely. That'll be fun. I'm definitely going to tune into that. I haven't heard them in a while. Heard Keith's dulcet tones. Maybe he'll talk about George Pickens a little bit. We'll see.
Maybe. We'll find out. Let's get back to some of these trade questions, Tyler.
All right. So we were going to jump into one more, Brian. So this one's a little unique because it's a 10-team league.
Okay.
So, more players go around.
Yeah.
Quarterback, super flex, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, a tight end. And the unique part of this is it's 5 flex positions on top of that. So it obviously not a super flex. So wide receiver, running back, tight end. So 5. That's a lot of starting spots on a roster with a quarterback and a super flex. So what Brian did was he sent away Najee Harris, Gerald Everett, and a 24 fourth, and he received Trey Lance in return. So where are you at on that? You think it was too expensive, just right? Did he get a steal? I don't know. I feel like people could go a lot of different ways with this one.
So again, I guess it's all like, I mean, it is all roster dependent. If you're giving away Najee Harris, my question is, who the hell do you have as your running backs? Like, you must be pretty. Like, do you have Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor as your starting running backs, and Najee's like the one on the side of that's ridiculous. So Trey Lance, it really comes down to how you're evaluating Trey Lance this year, and everybody in the fantasy community in June, in May, and April, basically for the most of this year, has been, oh, Trey Lance, he's going to be the second coming of Jesus Christ. I swear to God. That's literally what they're saying on Twitter. He's the second coming of Jesus Christ. I'll just pull up the tweets. Just kidding, of course. And I'm waiting for the lightning bolt to come strike me as I'm saying that aloud. But, I get it. Mobile quarterback. He has arm talent. He has, he's really good at a lot of things. But still a lot of unknowns there in San Francisco with him, whether or not he's going to light it up and be that person. On the flip side, we talk about the fact that this is a 10-team league, and you brought up a good point in our pre-show meeting that the fact that this person is giving away Najee Harris, he's probably not hurting at that running back position. Like we just said a few seconds ago, also. So you're taking kind of a gamble. If you're throwing away, here's the thing. I don't like this, to answer your question, to go the long roundabout answer. I don't like giving away Najee Harris for Trey Lance no, I can't. I can't justify it for 5 flex spots, and you're giving away one of the better running backs and PPR running backs. And I say that PPR running back because he was one of the most targeted running backs in all of football last year. People kind of assume that he's just kind of like a bulldozing rushing running back, but no, he was one of the highest targeted running backs in all of fantasy football last year. I can't do it. Not for an unknown. I know everybody's trying to get ahead of the curve and trying to get the next Jesus Christ superstar. Is that a musical? Did I just say that? Jesus Christ. Oh my God, yes. I say that because my wife is a big musical fan, and so the fact that I actually got that right it impresses even me. Like, and I'm pretty humble, but
she's gonna be very proud.
Thank you. I can't do it. What are your thoughts on this?
So I don't hate it. I don't love giving Najee away there, but I think the big thing with Najee is I don't see any world where he matches his performance from last year. Okay. They lost Big Ben, so they're not going to have an absolute check down machine at quarterback. They're already talking about him playing less snaps, which is good. You play less snaps, you get a few less opportunities, your efficiency goes up. That's okay. That's not a big deal. But the 90, I think it was 97 target mark is just not going to happen again. Between Pat Freiermuth starting to come into his own, obviously Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool, they spent draft picks on George Pickens and Calvin Austin. They want to continue to throw the ball, and they don't want to be forced to throw it to Najee. My other knock on Najee is he's just not he's a really good player, so I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but he's not super dynamic. He can break tackles with the best of them, but he's not going to house it for 50 yards. That's just not the kind of player he is. He doesn't have that speed. He just doesn't. So being the running back 4 again, like he was last year, I would be stunned if that happened again. Which side would I take in this trade? I would probably still take the Najee side. But the one thing I would say is if the team that sent away Najee was really hurting for a quarterback and pretty healthy at running back, I could get behind this.
Okay. Those are very good points there. Yeah, you know what I think is funny, just in dynasty trading altogether,
Mhm.
the notion of like packaging a really good player with like a scrub player, just so you can kind of like give equal value and weight to like the player you're acquiring. Like, did he really have to throw in Gerald Everett? Like, is that really going to sway? Is Gerald Everett going to sway your decision making for giving up Najee Harris for Trey Lance? I think that's just silly to me. Like, just trade
It
the players that you
could.
want, unless you're trying to like offload your roster because you have too many spots filled. You know, like
Yeah.
if I'm the person who's getting Gerald Everett and Najee Harris, like the first thing I'm doing is like dumping Gerald Everett. Like I don't need him on my roster. I don't know. That's just a little pet peeve now when it comes to dynasty. Just wanted to.
Yeah. I actually I like Gerald Everett's prospects this year.
Do you really?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's going to a totally vacant spot. Jared Cook was targeted quite a lot in LA, and Jared Cook was what 800 years old when he was in LA. So Gerald Everett's going in there. You know, he hasn't performed very well, but he was on a Rams team to start his career that also had Tyler Higbee and Jared Goff at quarterback, and he flashed a little bit there. And then he went to Seattle, who Russell Wilson, like when he goes in to the huddle, when he goes into the offensive meeting room, he looks at the tight end, he doesn't say a word to him, and he just flips him off. That's what happens. You know, little known fact, but Russell
Good to
Wilson
know.
just flips off the tight end before every play.
That's
Uh,
hilarious.
so you know, he goes to a Chargers team that has one of the best, if not the best, young quarterback in football with Justin Herbert, and he's going to have a lot of opportunity to produce in the barren wasteland that is the tight end position. So, you know, is he making a huge swing for me in this trade? Probably not, but I would certainly not mind having Gerald Everett on my roster for this season and possibly moving forward because he signed a pretty nice contract with them.
I guess when we're looking at position scarcity at tight end, I guess I can understand that. Just I guess I can understand that. Okay, I guess that makes sense.
And I immediately take back what I said about he signed a pretty nice contract with them. It's a 2 year. His cap hit in 2023 is $8 million, but he has like a $4 million dead cap hit. So it's kind of a toss up. He might be on there for 2 years, but still, he's a tight end that just turned 27. That's really athletic. Had second round draft capital coming out of South Alabama, and the tight end position typically takes a while. So you know, I feel like I'm Brian talking about Brevin Jordan, but
oh yeah, I can't wait for this conversation next week. Hey, so Gerald Everett and Brevin Jordan cut from the same cloth. Don't you think, Brian? Yeah, that's going to go over so well. Brian, if you're listening or watching, please comment on what was just said just there. So anyhow, I'll be tuning in next week for sure to hear that.
Oh man! All right, so I'm going to jump into some listener trades here.
All right,
You know, we've talked about Brian and I's follies and successes here, so let's jump into some listener trades. So we're going to start off light here, and it's kind of it's a very sobering trade. And this person traded away Michael Thomas.
Okay.
And they received 23 third-round picks. So it's a little depressing, but where are you at with that?
It is depressing, but I honestly can make the argument that he's not worth more than the third round picks in 2023 because if reports came out now that he's good to go, he's 100%, he's locked in, he's going to be a key focal point of this offense from week one, I'd be like 23 thirds. You better up that to seconds at least, or else I'm not even touching this. But the guy, he's still not there. He's still rehabbing from his injury last year. That right there, like the thirds. I think that's a fair trade, to be honest with you.
Oof, yeah. I've been trying to sell Michael Thomas for a while. I sadly spent a first and a second on Michael Thomas right before it came out last year that he had hurt his foot.
Oh, nice.
Like literally 2 days before. So, he's just been toiling on my roster, just sucking up space. But I've tried to say, hey, here's Michael Thomas and my early second for next year. Give me your late first. So essentially, like, trade down 4 spots. Everyone's like, nah, I'm good.
Would you take 23 thirds for Michael Thomas at this point?
No.
What would you hold out for?
I would try to hold out for 223 seconds, maybe just a second, just something of value. I would rather
I would.
I probably still wouldn't do it for a second and third.
Really?
And I think that might just be stubbornness on my part, where, you know, this guy, if all of a sudden he's healthy,
right,
he could be awesome.
Right.
And if I'm giving up a second and a third to take that gamble and find out if I just magically have a top 10 wide receiver for one season, okay, I'll give that up.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point there. Yeah. Let's go to the next one.
All right, next one. This one's a little more fun. So team 1, and these are all 12-team, super flex, half PPR, half point tight end premium.
Okay.
So team 1 receives Brandon Ayuk and a 2023 third.
Okay.
And team 2 receives James Conner. So I really like the balance of that trade. I don't think there are any losers in this trade, but where are you at with it?
So for like short term, I love this trade. I feel like it is pretty balanced. But I'm on the Ayuk side. Whoever's receiving Brandon Ayuk in the 2022 third, I could really care less about at this point, which I know it's sacrilege to say that about a draft pick. But we saw Ayuk come on down the stretch last season, even though he was in the doghouse for most of the season last year. Down the stretch last year, they finally started incorporating him. There's this unknown going on with Deebo Samuel, whether or not he wants to play or he's not going to play. Now, granted, he has been showing up to off-season activities. You know, we'll see what happens there. But I just feel Ayuk, especially his connection with Trey Lance that we were seeing last year, is not something to scoff at. And you look at James Conner, I mean, diminishing returns. You know, I understand he's a younger running back. I don't even think he's 25 yet, if memory serves me correctly.
Really?
So don't quote me on that. I could be
fact checking this.
Thank you. But you know, he has that injury history from Pittsburgh. He played most games last year. But you know, it's Dynasty. I'm thinking I want the player that's going to play the longest. And I think Ayuk has some serious long-term potential, longer than James Conner does. And of course, this is all team dependent, right? So, I mean, if I'm giving away James Conner, then I should be pretty good, right?
Yeah. And James Conner he just turned 27 last month.
Yeah. Okay, see, now that's leaning even more and more towards Ayuk's side for me.
However, the one thing I will say is the contract that James Conner signed with the Cardinals, he is on that team for 2 years. He is their starting running back for 2 years, as long as he's on that field.
Okay.
He's not going anywhere. So you got 2 years of James Conner there.
Would you take that over however many years for Brandon Ayuk?
Probably not, because I don't trust him to stay healthy. I think he runs too upright. He runs really hard. If you've ever actually watched him play, and it's honestly, it's like a car crash every time. It makes me scared. I feel like he's going to get hurt every time.
It's like watching. I'm just envisioning like if like he was a car like crashing into everything. It's like, oh my god, watch out!
Yes,
that's what you do when you are watching James Conner run. He's like, oh my god, watch out! Every single running play.
The sound effect of ooh every time he runs into the line.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'll take Brandon Ayuk. I like his prospects, especially if Deebo ends up somewhere else. Although I think Deebo will probably remain on the Niners. I feel like that might have all been a ploy to say, hey, stop freaking playing me at running back. I'm not running the ball 12 to 15 times a game. This is ridiculous.
That's a good point.
All right,
that
so
is a good point.
We're going to do 2 more.
Okay.
And we're going to try to land the plane after this. So this is apparently my time to get some advice here. So, I asked some people for recent trades that they've made for this show. And apparently me asking for recent trades that people made it drove people to send me trade offers.
Okay.
So I have a team where it's a good young team. I've got it's a 1 QB. I got Justin Herbert. I've got Jonathan Taylor. I've got Najee Harris. I've got Justin Jefferson. All really good young players. I also have Travis Etienne. So this is it feels like a logical trade, but it's hard to do. Would you give up Travis Etienne with a young team with Jonathan Taylor and Najee Harris as your top 2 running backs for Aaron Jones? Straight up.
In redraft, I would, but we're not talking redraft.
We are not talking redraft.
I don't think I'd give him up, to be honest with you. There's so much unknown with James Robinson. A couple of days ago, it's like, oh, he's not going to be ready for camp, and then it's like today, it's like, oh, well, he'll be ready for camp. Like, in other words, they don't know. You brought up a good point when we were talking about running backs and dynasty values back in February or March. Wow, it's been that long. Aaron Jones, is probably not going to be a Green Bay Packer after this year. It's going to be the AJ Dillon show in Green Bay.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of uncertainty of like where he's going to play. Is he a good player? Yeah, he's great. He's fantastic. He can do all sorts of dynamic things, whether it's running the ball or receiving the ball. But the same can be said for Travis Etienne, and he has. I was just about to say he has less wear and tear, but no, he doesn't, because he had an ACL versus Aaron Jones. I just think this is where Brian's ageist point of view comes into play for my thinking, and I want to go with the younger player who has more an opportunity to bounce back, has a longer situation going on in terms of being able to be on the field with Jacksonville than Aaron Jones does with an Aaron Rodgers-led offense.
Yes, but the one thing I will say for Aaron Jones, to walk back my Aaron Jones will not be a Green Bay Packer. This was when we thought Aaron Rodgers was not going to be a Green Bay Packer. So it still makes a lot of sense for them to cut him next year, just move on. So it's still a very possible. It's a likely possibility. We'll say that. But if Aaron Rodgers is still there next year, he might try to flex his muscle and keep Aaron Jones. So,
fair enough.
Let's say that happens. Would you give up Travis Etienne for 2 years of Aaron Jones?
No.
Still no? Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Yes, I would.
You would?
For 2 years? Yeah, because I'm normally thinking in Dynasty like the 3 to 5 year window. So if he gets me close to that 3 year window and Aaron Jones is a league winner, give me that on an Aaron Rodgers-led offense, then the unknowns you have with Etienne and Jacksonville. Yeah, that scenario, I would want the Aaron Jones side.
Yeah, but again, obviously it's that's a huge question mark.
Right.
All right, let's do one last one. This is a fun one. So team 1, this is 12-team PPR Superflex, tight end premium, all that good stuff. Okay. Team 1 received Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Team 2, the team that received Lamar Jackson gave up Garrett Wilson, a 2023 first, and 2 2023 seconds.
Where's the smash accept button? Absolutely. Give me all. Look how much draft capital you're getting, and not just like horrible draft capital, like first and second 2023, where this quarterback class is supposed to be like really, really good. Even though I don't know anybody who's in it because it's too early to say. But Garrett Wilson, the talent upside of the 2023 draft class versus a quarterback who's been having issues staying healthy the past couple seasons, because they use him as a runner, even though he is more of a passing quarterback. I don't want to get that confused because I think there's a big stigma of him just because he's athletic. That's all he does is run. No, he can throw the ball too. He's a quarterback. But give me the offensive upside with Garrett Wilson, and that draft capital is just too much to turn down.
All
For
right.
me.
I respect it. I just don't know. I might go the opposite direction. I mean,
Okay.
Lamar is whatever you want to say about him. He's probably going to be a top 5 quarterback for years to come, and he always has that. He has that MVP season in him. He has that season where, like Josh Allen last year, he's just 3 to 4 points better than every single quarterback. Garrett Wilson could be a complete bust. I don't know. He could be useless. Then you're left with a first and 2 seconds. So I really like the draft class. Just the names that I've seen, the little bit I've watched, I love them. So I would not fault anyone for taking this trade, but finding a top 5 quarterback is really hard. And Lamar Jackson is one.
All right.
Well, let's close this out. So that was a lot of fun. So let's talk about what we're doing over at fantasyandframes.com. Brian Ford just released a Dynasty Target article for Michael Gallup. As Jorge mentioned, I released a J.K. Dobbins Dynasty Target article, and I will be working on a David Njoku Dynasty Target article for all those fiends that just need to read 700 words about David Njoku. And also, as Jorge mentioned, we have Keith Fleming and Joe Matz coming back on the Daily Fix podcast. Jorge and Nate Markham are on the Shoot the Gap podcast. And when do you think Fourth and Frame is going to be coming back, Jorge?
So I'm on vacation with the fam July 11th through the 15th. So that following week is when we'll be back, and we'll be in full redraft mode. And that Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern is when you can expect Fourth and Frames to come back.
All right. I'm excited for that. I love Dynasty. I love redraft. All of it is just a lot of fun. I love fantasy football.
I was talking to the guys the other day about on Shoot the Gap. That is, they want you back. We need to have, they were like, we need Tyler to come back. He was such a fantastic. He was putting Nate on blast for Aiden Hutchinson. So, still making fun of him about that. So that was, we need you back on that podcast pretty soon.
That sounds fun. I will gladly go back and talk a little bit of defense.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah, I've been brushing up on it. So where can they find you on Twitter, Jorge?
Sure. So you can find me at Jorge B. Edwards, JorgeBedwards. But I'd rather you follow us all here at Fantasy and Frames on Twitter. You go to our Facebook page, our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're really trying to build up that presence there. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you name it. We're at those social media platforms, so check all those out. I really want to talk about our Dynasty Targets articles. We are cranking out a lot of articles talking about these players that you should be focusing your efforts in Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues to acquire, whether it's our latest one with Bill Mustafa talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown. He really thinks that there is still a lot of Dynasty value left in him, given what's happening with Detroit. Nate and I were covering a lot of IDP Dynasty targets. He put out a recent article talking about Cody Barton. You mentioned Brian with Michael Gallup and Elijah Moore and Brevin Jordan. Shocking, he did the Brevin Jordan Dynasty Target article. So we have a lot of stuff coming on, and we're going to keep cranking out these articles between now and the middle of July. So we have a lot of players to talk about that we really think you should invest your time into trying to acquire. So check out all that stuff out over at fantasyandframes.com. And so we got some stuff going on.
Absolutely. And you can find me on Twitter at FFTylerHeil, and that's HEIL. I know, Jorge, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. So for those who are unaware, we do every year here a charity tournament called the Four-Eyed Championship. And so this year it's going to be an offense/IDP best ball. So literally we include our IDP positions. We include our offensive skill positions, and it's a best ball league, which means you only have to draft and then set your rosters, and then that's it. You're done. There's no weekly maintenance that you have to worry about. It's great for those who want to get their feet wet in IDP, but don't want to deal with the weekly commitment of having to pick the players that they may be unfamiliar with. And so league divisions will be sent out pretty soon, and then we'll be sending out invites and sign-up sheets, and we really hope all of you out there would want to participate. It's for a good cause, obviously, it's for multiple charities. We have at least 5 charities that could win donations. So we're looking forward to supporting all those charities out there, and hope that you do too.
Oh yeah, that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. All right. Well, thank you, Jorge, for jumping on and subbing in for Brian. Brian, we hope you feel better soon. And everyone, thank you very much for listening. We'll be back next week on the Dynasty 365 podcast on Tuesday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Thank you.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.